Video, I want to show you how step by step take the workflow we created, the data pipeline we created previously. I have it here on this video. So this is the video where we introduce workflow orchestration, and this is actually a summary of what we did in the previous week. So here we look at this ingest data script that we created. Let me show it to you. So this is from the previous week, this ingest data script. So we have this script that we dockerized and we run it. What we want to do now is we want to take this script and put this inside Airflow. So we will do something like here. So we'll split it into two steps. The first step will get the CSV file. The second step will ingest this to Postgres database. So that's the plan for this video. It will probably be quite a long video. So if you understood everything about Airflow from the previous videos, you can skip this one. But if you want to see a step-by-step tutorial from getting this script to turning it into a DAG in Airflow, you can watch that. So I prepared a plan here. So this is the plan to help me not forget what I want to cover. Let me make it larger. So yeah, the first point here is I want to start with the Docker Compose file that Sagel created that you saw in the previous videos. So this was, if I open it, it's in week 2, Airflow, yeah, this README. So there was, you saw how this Docker Compose file was created. It was actually downloaded from Airflow. So this is like official Docker Compose file that we use, that we also modified. This is the file. I will not even attempt to make sense from this. This is long and with things like this, ampersands and things like this. But what I will do here is I will change it slightly. So in this DAGs we have the DAG that we created. So the first one is this workflow for uploading data to Google Cloud Storage, right, and converting our CSV into Parquet. And then there is another one which is created to local DB, which is exactly what we want to do. So there are actually two things. So the first is downloading, and then the second one is putting things to Postgres. But instead of using this one, so I will close it. What I want to do is I want to create a new folder here. So this folder, I'll call it DAGs new. And I just want to start from scratch. So we don't have any prior history of what you saw, the other DAGs. It just makes it a little bit simpler to develop because we will create these Python files. So just to have it a little bit cleaner. Yeah, so this is what I have. So now this I will map this DAGs new to this Airflow, and the rest will stay the same. So now there are no DAGs, so we're starting from a clean slate. Yeah, and I already built this. So building this Docker Compose build takes a while. And by the way, I am on Linux on a virtual machine. So I already tested this on Windows, so I did a dry run. On Windows it worked. Hopefully now it will also work on Linux. So now we will see that, if it works or not. Well, at least build was successful. So that's already promising. And now what I want to do. So here I did this mapping. I also did created this .env file, and yeah, so this step. So I did this Airflow user ID. So that was created. And now I just want to do Docker Compose up. Okay, and that I didn't do, so now it's pulling things. Yeah, I think I should have run init. Yeah, okay. It's seems it's okay. So it is exposing some it is exposing a port, so we are interested in a port, I think. Oops. We are interested in a port. Where's my search? 8080. Right, so this Airflow web server. And yeah, so I am, since I'm connected to a remote machine, I now want to, so I clicked Ctrl tilde to open terminal, and then I go to ports. I just don't know how to open ports tab immediately, so that's why first I open terminal and then I go to ports, and then I want to map port 8080 on remote to port 8080 on my host machine. And let me open it. So it's localhost 8080. The page is not working. I don't know why. Yeah, perhaps it hasn't initialized yet. I should have first run init. I think that could be the reason. So maybe it will take some time now to. It's actually loading. Yeah. So I just needed to be a little bit more patient. And now I think the password is Airflow, user and password Airflow. So now we connect, and there are no DAGs. Okay, go away. No, I don't want to remember this. So there are no DAGs because we did this. Oops. So we did this thing. So I mapped a new directory. That's why we have no DAGs, and this DAGs new is empty. So let's create a DAG. So I will click here, new file, and I will create a DAG, a Python file, which I'll call data ingestion local, maybe. And then let me take a look at this thing. So I'll need to borrow a few things from here. So I will take this. So these two, I think, yeah. So first the definition of the DAG, and then operators. Now we need to create a DAG, so I'll call it local DAG maybe, or local. I like the word workflow more than DAG. Okay, and now I need to specify a few things. Let me again take a look at what we actually specify here when we create a DAG. So first we need to create, give it a name. I'll call it local ingestion DAG. Then, yeah, for now I guess that should be enough. So we will add more things here later. But yeah, perhaps for now it's okay. And then I will do with this local workflow, and we need to create two tasks. The tasks we will have are these two, wget and ingest. So to create a task, so we need to specify one of the operators. I'll just use bash operator for now. So the first task will be wget task. So it will be a bash operator. We need, for the bash operator, we need task ID. Task ID will be, I'll call it just wget. And then we will need a bash command. Bash command. I'll just have something like echo hello world. Yeah, should be okay. Now we're just testing things. And then I'll have another one. Another one will be, it's not task, it's task. The second one, as we have here, will be ingest task. Ingest task. So call it ingest. Yeah, that's fine. Ideally, we should give it longer names, but for now, because this is just a two-step pipeline, we can keep it simple. And then we need to specify the dependency. So we basically need to do something like this. So ingest depends on wget, so wget is executed first and then ingest. So we do something like this. So wget task and then ingest task. I don't know, task, job, it doesn't matter. Operator, yeah, same thing. But here we specify, so this is our workflow, and you see this is exactly the same as we have here. Yeah, and what I want to do is I also, so remember the case we discussed, so the parameter, I have it somewhere here in this video. Yeah, so we parameterize our DAG by month. So do I have it here somewhere? Yeah, probably. Yeah, so this month is a parameter for this DAG, right? So we want to run this workflow for every month. We want to run it for January, we want to run it for February, we want to run it for March, and so on. So we want to run it monthly. And for that, let me again take a look at what Agile did. So this schedule interval. And if I look it up, Airflow schedule interval. So there is some documentation, and then they say, let me enlarge it, that it can be a cron expression, or this once, hourly, daily, weekly, and so on. So we can actually do a cron expression. There is this nice website called cronjob Guru. And let's first take a moment to think how exactly we want to execute this. So imagine that, is it the right one? So imagine that we, let's say now it's January, and we're preparing some data for January, and then now it's February. So like when January is over, we think that all data, that everything that happened in January was already collected, but just in case we might wait for a couple of days, and let's say we want to process the data that we collected for January on February 2nd. And the same thing with February. So February, when February is over, we wait for a couple of days and then maybe execute on 2nd of March, and we process data for February. So what I want to say with this is we wait for a month to be over, and then we execute this for the previous month, let's say on each second day of the month. Now let's use this cronjob Guru to help us set it up. So I'll just copy from here. So we have this monthly. So monthly is run once a month at midnight of the first day of the month. So let me copy this expression here, and I'll tweak it a little bit. So instead of running it at noon at the first day, not noon, midnight, we want to run it on midnight of the second day, or maybe not even on midnight, let's say at 6 a.m. because why not? Let's just go with 6 a.m. So every month, on the second day of the month at 6 a.m. we want to schedule our job and process all the data that we collected over the previous month. And in our case, it will be our New York taxi data for, let's say, on February we want to process that, in March we want to process that, in April we want to process that, and so on, right? So we so this is sort of all the data that accumulated over this period. Okay, so for our schedule interval, let me go back to this cronjob Guru and copy this. So this is the interval we want to use for executing this job. And yeah, I think that's sufficient for now. I hope I didn't make too many mistakes. So now I save it, and now I go to Airflow. So I refresh it. I don't know, let me just try to restart it. It should automatically pick it up. I don't know why it didn't. So let me Control C it. Maybe there is something with permission, because I think what we need to do, yeah, I did this thing. So let me do it one more time. I have done this already, but what I want to do one more time is do Docker build, and also to make it a little bit faster. So if I'll go to Dockerfile. We will not need all this Google Cloud stuff. It's useful, but for the other DAG that we created here, just to make this process faster of building Docker images, I will comment this, and yeah, then we can comment it back when we're ready. So now let me do Docker compose build. Okay, so let's see if I do now Docker compose up, and then let me first run the init script. Yeah, and then I will run the whole thing. Okay, now let me run the whole thing. I have no idea what all these things mean, but hopefully it can. No, not still. Okay, airflow. Okay, now there is an error. Go away. Which is a good thing, because it was able to find the file. I don't know what actually I did to do this. Task is missing the start date parameter. This is a good thing. So it saw that there is a file. It attempted to load this file, and then it couldn't load the file because it expects this start date parameter. So let me add this start date parameter, and then for the start date, let me again copy. Do we have it here? No, we do not. Yeah, we have it here, start date. And then I'll use, I think I can just use datetime here. So from datetime, import datetime. And then I want to start from the 1st of January 2021. Yeah, let's see if that actually works. We want to execute this job for all the months. So we want to execute it for this month, for this month, for this month, and so on. So let me refresh it. We see that we have this local ingestion DAG now. Yeah, let me click on this. And we have these two steps. Actually, it looks nicer here if I look at the graph. So it looks very similar to what we have here, even though probably on YouTube it looks nicer than here. But yeah, we have this cute workflow with just two things. It hasn't run yet. And then these things are pretty simple. So it's just two bash operators. Maybe let's do something more ambitious here and print pwd, just to know where we are in, what kind of directory it is. And then I click on this, run, trigger, DAG, and now it will run. It will try to go back to this, to start date. I think we can see something. Yeah, schedule, Airflow scheduler now saw that we triggered this DAG, and it started scheduling all these runs, all these jobs. And we see that, let me refresh it. Yeah, we see that we have like these things from all the way back to January, the 1st of January, then February, and so on. And yeah, so let me take a look at this wget. So I click on this and then I go to logs, and then I look in the logs what actually happened there. So it shows what kind of the command it executed. So it executed the command echo hello world, and the output of this command was hello world, and the command exited with 0 return code, which means it was successful. So that's why the thing is green. This square is green. Then we can look at the other task, ingest in our case. Again, go to logs, and this one, yeah, so it executed pwd. So pwd current directory is this /temp/ something. Okay, and you saw that they executed in order, right? So first it was this one, then that one. And now let's make it a little bit more ambitious. So we want to now use this bash operator to download the file. And since I'm on a remote machine, for me it should be fast. Locally it's super slow, but when I am from a virtual machine it's fast. So I will now have this URL. So I'll take this one. Oh, no, I didn't want actually that. I wanted to copy link. Yeah, and what I'll do is I'll use wget, and then we want to save this to a specific location. So let me do this. It will be an f string, so wget URL, and then capital O. We want to save it. So let me take a look at this one. So yeah, here actually we use curl, not wget. I like wget more than curl. And then we saved it to this path to localhost dataset. And then path to localhost is what? Yeah, this is Airflow home. So let me also have this parameter here. I need to import OS. So this is actually an environmental variable. So I'll do this Airflow home. And then, yeah, so we need to save it to Airflow home, and then / I'll call it output CSV. This is very similar. I think it's exactly the same what we did previously in this ingest data. We saved to this CSV name, which was output.csv, which is not a good name, but for now let's just use that. I'll tell you why it's not a good name. So what else do we need here? Yeah, actually the reason we save it to Airflow home is because if we save it to the default location, which is /tmp something, all these files will be removed after our task finishes. So it downloads something and then the files are gone, and then this bash operator will not be able to do anything. And yeah, for this ingest task, instead of executing pwd, let's execute ls Airflow directory to know what kind of files we have there. So this will be again an f string. So we will not run anything yet here. We will just look at this folder to make sure that this output.csv file is there. And now what I will do is I will click on this thing. I will click clear, and what happens is now these things will be marked as not run, unrun, you see. And yeah, now Airflow scheduler attempts to run it, and then we immediately see that it failed. Okay, I don't want to download that. Let me cancel it. And let's see what happens. So I click on this thing, and then I go to logs, and then in logs I see that wget command not found. So I like using wget for downloading things, but unfortunately it is not installed in Airflow, on these Airflow workers. I can of course go to this Dockerfile and then maybe add here run apt-get install, and in addition to vim, in addition to vim also install something else. I will not do this. I will just it's tempting, but I will just follow the same approach. And even though I do not like curl, I will use curl, which should be fine. So it's URL, and then we use this thing for redirecting the output. It's actually interesting. I don't know if you know this, but we can, without having to download the entire file, we can take a look at, let's say, first 100 rows or first 10 rows. So if we do this, let me do curl, and then this S and capital S. So what happens, it starts outputting downloading the file and then putting this file to our terminal. You see? Let me stop it. It doesn't stop. And then what I can do is I can do head -n10, and it will just download the first 10 rows of this file and then stop it there. So it will not download the entire file, which is useful, especially when we have big CSV files, over 100 megabytes, and we just need to take a sample. And yeah, this is how we can do this. And when we do this this thing, it saves the output to whatever location we specify. So here in our case, it would be output CSV. So instead of printing it to standard output to terminal, it will save it to the file. So this is what is happening here. So now this curl should save the output to this location. And I think with curl also it's helpful to have this L flag. So L flag also follows redirect. So if this link is not the actual link, but redirects to some other link, and GitHub, for example, likes doing this, likes creating such links, then curl will follow this link and then print the actual content, but not redirect. So I'll add this L here, and yeah, we can try to run this. So I saved this. Now I go to Airflow, I click back, and now I want to clear it again. Okay. And now the scheduler will see, okay, this task is cleared. Let me try to execute it. You see, now it was too fast. Something is wrong here. It shouldn't be that fast. I'm wondering what it actually downloaded. Did it work or not? So we can check that. It shouldn't be that fast. I know it's a fast internet, but not as fast. So I'll do docker ps, and then what I want to do is I want to go to our worker. So this Airflow worker, right? So this is the container we're interested in. I'll do docker exec -it, then ID of this container, and then bash. And then this way I enter this container and I can execute things here. And then I want to check this output, what is here. So for example, less output. Okay, there is no less command. Maybe there is more. Yeah, it actually did download. How many rows are there? vc -l. Yeah, the speed here is amazing. I don't know, and the size of this file is something is suspicious here, but okay, whatever. So now I can exit it. Okay, I'll just trust that it's good. And then, yeah, we actually did this ls here, or at least here, ls, we know what is there, but our second thing, this bash operator, is also doing ls, so we can check its logs. And when we see here output CSV, this is what we expect. I don't know why it masks this. I think because Airflow is also password, so that's why it replaces all occurrences of Airflow with these stars. Yeah, interesting. Okay, so it works. It can download this. And then I told you that something is wrong with this output. And the thing that is wrong is, imagine that we're running multiple DAGs, multiple workflows in parallel, and all of them write this to this output CSV. Of course, they will overwrite each other, and the file will be corrupted, right? We don't want that. We want each task to write to its own output file, and so they can write this in parallel, read from these files in parallel, and do things like that. And then another thing, I should have mentioned it even earlier. So right now all the jobs will download the same file, which is kind of pointless, because we want to, like for example, let me go back. So this job one needs to process data for January, this job needs to process data for February, and so on. And we don't want to process the same file over and over again. So we need to parameterize it. So what I'll do is I'll call it URL template. So and then I'll start with, maybe I'll start with URL prefix. And the prefix will be this thing. And then we have the prefix. And then after prefix, we have the file name, right? And here in this file name, we have this parameter. So this is year and then day. And here we want to replace it with the actual, month and day. And, yeah, let me show you how to do this. Before I do this here, let me show how we can actually parameterize that. So I'll remove this f string again. Let me just comment, I think it's useful. I'll comment it and do again echo, and then in Airflow we can use Jinja. Jinja, this is a templating engine, spelled like Jinja, I think like that. Jinja, Python. Yeah, Jinja, not with G but with J. Yeah, Jinja is a templating engine that allows to inject any variables in strings. So Airflow uses that. And for example, we can inject ds as I think this is like date of execution, something like this. And then we can also see what is the timestamp. I have it in notes because I don't remember. Yeah, it's execution date. Execution date. Oops, I wanted to copy it. So let's execute that. So I'll put this in quotes just in case. So let me execute that. So I'm going here again, and then I press clear. Yes. And now it will re-execute this with this new code. So let's see in logs what we have. So, and for logs, where do I see? Yeah, so here this is echo. So we have execution date, which is 2nd of January, and this is a timestamp. And this ds is a string, and this is a timestamp. So string is not super useful for us, but timestamp is, because with timestamp we can format timestamp any way we want. For example, I again have it in my notes because I always forget this. To me, it's like an arbitrary sequence of characters, but this is a function that formats time. It's strf time. I think str is string, f format time. Still looks super arbitrary to me, and there is no way that I will ever remember that. And yeah, so here it gets parameters, and the parameters of this thing are this %y, capital Y is year, and then %m is month. And it's lowercase m means that it will be, well, basically this is this format. Right? And then we also need to escape the quotes, because we started our string with a quote, right? And our string is not over yet. That's why we need to put here this backslash. So now it should format our execution date as this thing. Okay, so let me run it. I think it would be better if I run this. Yeah, that's fine. I wanted to run it here, but that doesn't matter. So now let me go back. And yeah, I'll go with February. So let me clear it. So let's see what happens when we run it for February. So now Airflow noticed. Oh, I had to quickly run it. So now I go to logs, and then in logs I see that this is what it executed. So it executed this 2021-02. This is exactly what we want to put to our URL. So each task will put this thing into the URL and save this thing to our local file system. So each task will save its own file, right? So I am going to take this thing here, and I'm going to replace it here. So now what will happen is, so we build this URL template, right? And then depending on the execution date for which we run the task, it will put this thing there, and it will look for a specific file there. So let me do this and comment this back. So then we will have URL template. So this should be an f string again. And then output. Yeah, I also said that output is bad here, just output. We need to have output file template, which will be, let's say, Airflow home plus output underscore and this thing, and then CSV at the end. So the job will download from this location and we'll save it to this location on our file system. And I will just replace this whole thing with this. Hopefully it works. So let me try to execute that. So now again, go back. I don't know if I should try it for February. I never tried it for February. I was always doing this for January. Let me try that. Okay, now it's executing this. It is executing. You see, this is the state is running. Why it's so fast? True, it should be that fast. But yeah, we can see this was the command, it executed. So it actually ran this second month, right? And it saved it to opt airflow / this location. And then if we go back, and check the output of this task. Again, check logs, and it should print, yeah, this one. Just out of curiosity, I want to see how many records are there. I will again go to this container, and I want to do wc, and then this file. Well, it's quite a large file. I don't know why internet speed is so fast. I wish I had such speed at home. Yeah. So this instance is in Belgium, so probably in Belgium the internet is better than in Germany. Anyways, so let me exit that. Now we can download, for each month we can download what we need, like a respective CSV file. Now we need to process this. So there is no much sense in just LSing this, right? We want to insert this into Postgres. I have my notes, so let me check I didn't forget anything. So download the data. Yeah, so we covered that. See, we are actually like 60% through this, probably. Anyways, so the next step is putting the ingestion script to Airflow, and the ingestion script is this one, ingest data. So the script we created last week, so now let's put this to Airflow. And yeah, so remember last week we actually put this in Docker. Ideally, like let's say if I'm at work, I would also use this Dockerite version. But for the purposes of this video, it's a bit annoying to actually run Docker in Docker, because the whole thing is running in Docker, right? And if I want to put this ingestion script in Docker and then run this in Airflow that runs in Docker, things become a little bit complicated, right? So we can run Docker in Docker, but let's not do it here. Maybe if you want, you can, I'll leave it to you as an exercise that you can do it at in your own time. But for now, what we will do is we will use a Python operator, the same one we used in the previous videos. So here, CGL uses it, this Python operator. Actually, there is Docker operator, Docker operator, Airflow, right? So there is some documentation. I am sure this is completely useless, yeah, and not super useful, but there is, I think there was an article from Towards Data Science, yes, this one, that is quite good. It just tells you what you need to do. Yeah, it shows how to use Docker operator. Yeah, so Docker operator, and actually this thing, let me enlarge it. So this Docker URL, this weird URL thing allows you to run Docker in Docker. So I think this article actually describes how you run Docker compose. This is the same thing as we're doing right now, and it shows this how to run Docker in Docker. Let's not go there yet. I'm going to close that, even though it's very tempting, but not today. And we will use Python operator. And for that, where is this? Data ingestion local. I will create a new file. So I will put all the logic for processing the CSV file there. I'll call it ingest script. I'm very bad at coming up with names. Ingest script. It's okay. And then I will just copy the entire thing here. Oh, we don't need that. We don't need argparse. This thing goes away. Panda, SQL, Alchemy, time, we all need that. And yeah, so here this wget, we also don't need it goes away. CSV file goes away. URL, yeah, don't need that. Actually, CSV file doesn't go away. this is well, this job needs to know what it reads. Yeah, so this reads CSV, but the rest yeah, and the way it works, so if we look at our data ingestion DAG here, so this is the script that we use, and you see we can give it parameters like that. So we can pass a bunch of parameters to our Python function, and we can do whatever we want with these parameters. So I'll do that. So I'll just have user, password, host, port, DB, table, name, and CSV file. So this will be all parameters. And yeah, let me just print these parameters. I will not print all of them. Let me just print these two. And also what I want to do is I want to do engine connect just to make sure that it works. And then for now I will just comment that. So we will first test that our engine can actually connect to Postgres, and then we will actually do inserting. Oh, yeah. So that, and yeah, there is these two things. They sound innocent. They look innocent, but they are not, because we actually need to install these libraries on the workers, and that's why I told you that I would actually prefer running this in Docker, because a Docker image is self-contained, and we don't care what is installed on Airflow worker, what is not installed. We just have a Docker image which we run. But here we want to use the Python operator, thus we need to make sure that all the libraries we need are installed on the Python worker, on the Airflow worker. And we actually did this here. So this format to parquet function, so it uses pyarrow for reading CSV files and writing parquet files, this pyarrow that we needed to install. And we did this by specifying things in the requirements. So let me do that. I'm not a big fan of that, but let's do that. So in our Docker file, or maybe, you know what we can do is, like if I now add these two requirements, then I will need to rebuild the whole image. You can pretend that I put this here in requirements, but what I'll do is I'll just do this run pip install thing, this no cache directory. So this no cache directory means that it will not save things to cache. It will skip that part because we don't want our image to be large. I didn't talk about that when discussing this Docker file, but this is actually a good practice. When we do pip install, we specify this flag. So then we will install pandas, SQL Alchemy, and then this psychopg2 who came up with this name. And yeah, one thing that we should have also done last week is specify this binary. So if we don't specify binary, then it needs to build the whole thing, which takes some time, and then binary is already a pre-built binary that we just download and use. So yeah, ideally these things goes to requirements. Here, just to make it faster in video, it's probably boring for you to watch how containers build. Or maybe it's not, but I think it's a bit awkward. Anyways, we need to install that, and I want to do this separately just for the sake of speed. Now I am stopping that. And I'm doing docker compose build. And now, yeah, you see, now it installs. This is cached. So if I added something to this requirements.txt, it wouldn't be able to use cache, and it would need to install the whole, all the libraries. But yeah, here it just needs to install this psychopg2 binary, and the rest, yeah, SQL Alchemy is actually already there, which is a good thing. Yeah, cool. So now we have this ingest script. Main probably is not a great name. Now let me rename it to ingest. How do we call it? Let me take a look here. So this Python operator, it's called Python callable. Maybe first let me just change this thing. So I'll call it ingest, task ID ingest. Then Python callable will be, I'll call it ingest callable. Then I'll comment this thing for now and remove this. So ingest callable lives here, and then we need to import this. So I'll do from ingest script import ingest callable. Yeah, here. And then what's happening? Saved. And then we need to pass parameters here. So these parameters will go here. So user, password, host, port, DB, table, name, CSV file. All these parameters need to be passed. And these parameters, so this user, password, they are parameters for the database. So we need to get it from somewhere. Previously, we were passing them through command line interface. We used this argparse. This time, what we can do is we can use this env file. So we can just use environmental variables for passing these variables to our jobs. So let's do pghost, which in our case, it's not localhost. We actually think it's pg database, right? We'll actually need to talk a bit about that more. Like we have two Docker Compose files. How do we connect them to each other? But we will talk about this a bit later. So pghost, then pg, what was that user? Root, pg password, root, what else? We have password, host, port, right? Pg port, I think this is the usual one. And then database, pg database, it's ny taxi. Yeah, that's probably all we need. And now these things we need to pass to our workers. So I need to go to this Docker Compose, and yeah, so I think I see that we have this GCP project ID, GCP GCS bucket. I will just add them here as well. And instead of hard coding them, I will do slightly something else. Oops. So now to select, a few of you asked me how do I actually do this thing. So this is called multiple select. I first select this equals thing, equals character, and then press Ctrl D, and then I have multiple cursors. So it's not that I'm very fast at typing, it's just multiple cursors. And then I don't need these things. And then what I'll do is I'll have something like that. So here what it means that for the worker we will pass an environmental variable that is called pghost, which in turn will be read from the environmental variables of our host machine, of my computer. And in turn they will come from this .env file. So if I do export pghost and then specify the database name, then they will come from there. If I don't do this, they will come from this .env file. So this is how we do this, and because of this ampersand Airflow command, I think all Airflow things will get it. So the worker, yeah, so you see this command, the web server, the scheduler, the worker, trigger. I don't know who, actually I think only worker needs them. But yeah, let's just do it this way. So all of them will have this information. now we need to load this information from this data ingestion local. So it's again, I'll copy this and I'll do. So now on Windows, I again have multiple cursors. So what I do is I just do Ctrl and Alt and move down. So then I have multiple cursors. On Linux, it's Shift and Alt, and then on macOS, I don't know, like it's Ctrl something. I don't know how it works there, but anyways, yeah. So I did Ctrl Alt and then down. So I now have 5 cursors, and then what I will do is os.getEnv and this thing. So this was a fast way of typing this thing, and now I will save these 2 variables. So now I have a bunch of variables that are coming from environmental variables, that are coming from Docker Compose, that are coming from .env file. So that is a long chain, but this is how we can pass the parameters there. And of course, when you have not a local instance of Airflow, but something running somewhere, you can also use similar things for passing parameters. Or for example, with Docker, you can use CLI for that. Anyways, so we have this information now. We need to pass it. And yeah, so we need to, let me copy these things. So these are all the parameters we need to pass. And instead of using this, so if I use this dictionary, then I need to specify names in quotes. I am lazy to do that. So what I'll do instead is I'll use dict, which is also a way of creating dictionaries, but then I do not have to add quotes. And probably I spent more time explaining that. Maybe it would be faster if I just put quotes there, but yeah, anyways. Now user will be pg user, password will be pg password, host will be pg host, port will be pg port, database will be pg database, then table name, we need to think about that, so I'll put question marks here for now, and then CSV file. This will be this output file template. Actually, templates work for both Bash operators, Python operators, all kind of operators. So output file template, for this one is actually input, not output, but yeah, let's put it there. And yeah, so now the interesting part is how do we connect to YAML files. So we have a YAML file here, this Docker Compose YAML, right? And we have a YAML file from week 1, which is Docker Compose YAML here, right? So how do we connect these two? And yeah, I didn't know about that actually until recently. And then of course there is Stack Overflow knows. So there is this awesome question on Stack Overflow that tells you how exactly you can do that. And I think, yeah, this external thing, this is what we need. So the way it works is first I need to let me start this first. So I do docker compose, because if I do docker ps, nothing is running there. Yeah, it's fine, because I stopped it. Docker compose up. So now it started. At the beginning we see that, where it is, it should say that it started a network. It's not telling us that, but if I open a different terminal and do docker network ls, yeah, I have this Airflow default, and this is the network we want to connect from the first Docker Compose. So I want that, I'll copy this name, and then I will put it here for now as a comment. and then this network external. So for that Docker Compose, it will be an external network because that network was created by this Docker Compose file, and the name of this network is Airflow default, and I'll call it Airflow. And I think now we need to specify that, like here, networks, that this this PG database lives in this network. For now, I will comment pgadmin because there are quite a few things running right now on this computer. So I will comment pgadmin not to start yet another service. So we have already two Postgres database because actually Airflow, you can see where is Airflow uses also Postgres here for storing its own metadata, and then we have where did it go? We have this one. We have Postgres for storing our data. Yeah, quite a few things, right? So that's why I will comment this, and let me go up now, week 1, then Docker, and I do Docker compose up. Okay, we are running this thing. So Postgres ready, database is ready. So let me check. So it's pgCLI. I probably have it in history. pgCLI. It should be 5.3. Yeah, 1. Yeah, root. And then if I do dt, then nothing is there. I think I should have something. Okay, maybe I deleted the volume, so that's why nothing is there, which is actually a good thing because now we will be able to test it. Okay, so the database is working, and you see, so here we do port mapping, so that's why when we execute pgCLI, we connect to this database from the previous week Docker Compose file. But this service, this Postgre, does not have any ports, so it doesn't have this section with ports. That's why it doesn't map any port to our host machine, because it doesn't need to. It's an internal service. Only Airflow is supposed to talk to it, right? So we shouldn't be able to access it. And you see, it's actually doing volume a bit differently. So instead of using a directory in the same directory where this thing is running, so it specifies a volume, so it gives it a name, and I think at the end somewhere here, yeah, it says that this PostgreDB volume is a volume somewhere, and we don't care where it is, but it's not a directory in the folder where we are running things. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to again bash to our worker, docker ps. So where is the worker? This Airflow worker, and then try to connect to this database from the worker. Docker exec -it, then id bash, and then I'll run Python, and then in this Python I will do where's this? I'll do this thing. I'll first import SQL alchemy. Good, it works. And then I'll do this thing. So it's root at db. What's the name? So it's PG database. Then port 54321, and then /new y taxi. It's not enough string, it doesn't matter though. And now let's do engine connect. Works. I was afraid it wouldn't, but yeah, it works. It is able to connect to a database running in a different Docker Compose file. That's cool, right? Okay, let me exit that. So it seems to work. Now let me close me. There are too many files that are open. And now I want to check this ingest script and see if it can connect. If we were successful in passing all the variables from this .env all the way through from this .env file to this script. And yeah, so table name CSV file. Yeah, so if it cannot connect, then it will throw an exception here in this line of code. So I don't need that anymore. Now let's have to sign on. Let's sign in again. Therefore, and yeah, so let me take this thing, clear it. Oh, there is an error. Let's see what is there. Host, pg host. See what is the problem there. Yeah, I forgot a comma. And here another comma. And here also. Yeah, that is quite a few commas. So now let me reload this. Again, errors. Let's see what is there. I think I resolved it. So let me just reload it one more time. Okay, so now it doesn't complain about anything. So supposedly it's fine. Let's check. Click clear. So now it will execute that. So I'll go to logs and then see what's happening. Yeah, I think these are the two things that we wanted to print. So we wanted to print table name and CSV file. I don't know why table name is, yeah, it's question marks. This is what we passed. And then this is the CSV file. Right. Okay, it seems to work. It didn't throw any exceptions, so task exited with return code 0, which is a good thing. So we were able to connect from the ingest script. And now let's uncomment this. And yeah, so now we will use the CSV file to insert this to database. And I'll add a bit of logging here. So I will measure time here and then insert it. So just more logging inserted. The first chunk. And then I'll say connection established successfully, starting to or inserting data. Okay, so that I think, yeah, I need this thing as well. Otherwise it will complain. So when I was doing a rehearsal, I forgot about this thing and I had an error. So now I remember about that. Yeah, and we still need to figure out what to put here in this table name. And what we can do is we can, for each CSV file, for each month, we can have a separate table. And so the table will be, let me write a table name template. So it's like, how do we call it? The orange script. Do have a name here? I'll call it yellow taxi, and then this thing here. But instead of minus, I will probably use underscore here as well. So it will be all underscores. So yellow underscore taxi underscore 2021 underscore 01. So this will be the name of the table for which we insert this. And let me pass it here. And ingest script. So it will. So this thing here, it's what it's doing. It's creating a table if it doesn't exist, and if it exists, it first drops this table and then creates a new one. And this is why we want to create a table name with this name. So for each month, we want to have a separate table. And another reason we want to do this and not to create a common table to which we put all the files. This thing is called Idempotency. This is a very complex word, but this is something that is quite important. So all the tasks in Airflow, in any workflow, should be idempotent, meaning that let's say we have a task. This ingest. So we invoke it for 2021 January, right? And we invoke it once, right? And then we produce some data. And then what happens if we retry this? So the task breaks in the middle, and then we want to retry it. And then what happens in this case? Or what happens if we run it 3 times? And let's say if we don't drop the database, if we keep inserting to the same database, then after running this thing 3 times, we will have 3 copies of the same rows. But if we drop the database and we create a new one every time we run, we will have the same results. And no matter how many times we run, at the end we will have the same result as if we just run it once. I don't know if it makes sense for you, but yeah, basically the idea is it doesn't matter if we run it once or 5 times, or if it broke in between and then we rerun it. After a successful run, we get our database in a state that is consistent. That's the idea of this complex word idempotency. Anyways, so leaving this line here is a good idea. And then, for example, there could be another step in our DAG that puts all these different tables together in one, but we will not do this here. Okay, I don't think anything is missing here. What I want to do is I just want to go there and clean the entire thing. And to make it more interesting, let me also clean this thing. I have never done this in my experiments. So what happens if I run 2 in parallel? Now let's see. Okay, it's failing. I was too early to do that. Let's see what actually name CSV name is not defined, of course. So it should be not CSV name, but CSV file. And by the way, so I wanted to show you another thing. So here we used this execution date. We can actually pass this execution date also as a parameter to our callable, and then we don't need to specify it here in our OP quarks, so in the list of arguments we pass, because yeah, so Airflow will inject this variable if we specify it here. So we can see how it works. So let me re-execute that. So the downloading step was successful, but this thing failed. So let me clear it. Yes. And let's look at the logs. So connection established successfully. Now it's inserting data, and yeah, it printed something. Yeah, so it printed the name of the table, then the location from which it's reading, and then this is the execution date. And while it's doing that, we can do pgCLI and do, okay, type this thing and then do -dt. Yeah, so you see this table is already there, and I can do select count from this yellow taxi typo. Yeah, so it's inserting the second batch right now. So let me reload this. Yeah, first chunk, it's inserting another chunk. Okay, yeah, it's taking some time, but that's okay. So now let me go back and run another thing in parallel. So I will clear this thing. Yes. And let's see what happens. Let's look at logs. Okay, yeah, so this is doing processing a different file. It creates a different table. Yeah, I want to do dt. You see now we have two tables here. So this one doesn't have any data yet, and because I'm inserting two, probably for the database it's even more now difficult. It's slower, but I think you get the idea. And yeah, so this setup that we discussed here, this is okay for local tests, but in reality usually what you have is you have a database that is running somewhere in the cloud, so you don't need to do all this weird stuff we did with Docker Compose, like you know, connecting to different network. So usually you just have a database somewhere, and more often it's some sort of BigQuery, for example, or in AWS it's Athena, and then you insert data there. So let me see if it actually inserted. Yeah, so this is how you can turn the script that we wrote last week into an Airflow DAG. I hope it was useful. I know it took a bit of time, more than 1 hour. Now I think that's all. Let me, before wrapping up, I want to check if I didn't forget anything. I think everything I wanted to cover is here. Yeah, I don't think I forgot anything. So yeah, that's it for this video. See you soon. Bye.